Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, and decrease depression. Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory has helped thousands like you get incredible life-changing results. The Foojan app gives you her evidence-based treatment in the palm of your hand. Download today.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice podcast, a heartfelt chat with my guests and you beautiful, beautiful listeners and viewers. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist, author, and the originator of the awareness integration theory. And it's so great to be with all of you today. I want to share with you about some of our books that are coming for recently for the awareness integration theory. Just go to my website, foojanzeine.com. You're going to have Life Reset, which is all for you guys who want to go through journaling and look at every area of your life. You have the Awareness Integration Theory book, which is about all of you coaches, all of you mental health clinicians, all of you psychotherapists who want to take this book and learn how to work with this with your clients. And we do have certification programs for coaches and psychotherapists so they can become a certified AIT practitioners. And we also have the book Intentional Parenting for all of you amazing parenting gurus, whether you're a parent or a teacher or a grandparent and dealing with children from infancy all the way to kind of adulthood. And every chapter is written from a perspective of how to be with your child in their natural stages and how to use the awareness integration theory for this purpose. So please just go to the website and get those. And I love to chat with you about them. In this episode, I chat with Alreen Haeggquist. She has been motivated by the pain of her own childhood to become a lawyer in order to stand up for victims of abuse. She founded her own firm and in San Diego in 2008, which has helped hundreds of other women stand up for themselves. Alreen has challenged high-profile entities, including Salk Institute, Trader Joe's, Kaiser Permanente, and the San Diego Sheriff's Department, and a president-elect. Alreen's core message is that as a society, we need to break the silence and help women stand up to their abusers. In 2023, she broke her own silence and published her story in the book, Fired Up, Fueling Triumph from Trauma. We talk about this book. We talk about her experiences, her childhood experiences with her family, and how was it to be able to share even that with her family? What has she gone through? How does she, sees also the trace of this in her own marriage and as she grows up, and how she turned that fire inside and the rage inside about all of this into shifting it and supporting women across the world in order to be able to, educate by her experience, educate women for them to also take a stand for themselves and move up and do all of that. And it was amazing conversation. It was a heartfelt conversation. We both shared a lot of the experiences as we've shared some of the experiences in our childhood. And, for people who have been through this awareness integration theory and therapy, it is a trauma informed. And, every day in my practice, I work with people who have been abused physically and sexually and how they can heal their trauma through that. So go to www.alreen.com in order to get to know her and get to know her book. And I'm positive that you will experience and enjoy this conversation, this heartfelt conversation between her and I. Subscribe to my podcast, my YouTube channel. Connect with me through my website, foojanzeine.com, or any of the social media. It's all Dr. Foojan Zeine. If you want to know more about the app, Foojan app, which is here for you to go through 30 areas of your life and really experience becoming aware, integrating, creating goals and setting up, kind of living in the present, becoming aware of your present moment, cleaning the past, and really shooting to the future, envisioning it, and just becoming a new you, which is fulfilled with life. You can get Foojan app from Apple Store or Google Play, anywhere, you get usually your apps. And you can also go to Foojan.com to get to know about the app and go through that and download it also. I love to hear from you. So no matter what, connect with me. Tell me what topics you want me to talk about. If you have questions, share it with me, and I'll come back and share with you the answers or the experts, and bring you what you're needing and wanting. So without further ado, this is Alreen.
Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, and decrease depression. Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory has helped thousands like you get incredible life-changing results. The Foojan app gives you her evidence-based treatment in the palm of your hand. Download today.
Alreen Haeggquist, it is so nice to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I went through your wonderful book, and it really landed on me, fired up, fueling triumph from trauma. It was a lot of experiences that I can't say personally I've gone through what you have gone, but very similar. So as I was going through your sharing all that was going on personally with you, and then the way you looked at it, the way that you wrote it, it really, really touched my heart. And I really want us to be able to deliver this to everybody who's listening or viewing us, to get to know where you went from your own experience and your experiences with different types of abuse, and how you turned that around, and you made it into a strength versus being a victimized, holding the victimized essence of it. And how from there you're taking a stand for moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. What do you want to start with? You want me to start with the story and a little bit of background, or?
Sure. You've talked about the silence that we kept. And for example, what I read from you, which was really touching for me, and this is maybe where you want to start, you wrote, I was always told that if I opened my mouth, it was just too much, that I should shut it and keep it shut. My therapist calls what was going on in my family a cult, because no one outside our family knew about the violence and the abuse. So let's share from that perspective first.
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of 10 kids, and my dad was abusive. I mean, I was terrified of him all growing up. And he was abusive, emotionally and verbally and physically and sexually. And then there's my mom, who is there to protect you. And she just stayed silent. She knew what was going on, but she didn't say anything. And, we weren't told to not talk about the abuse. The abuse just wasn't discussed. Like, it was just happening and nobody was saying anything about it. But the being told to keep your mouth shut was about everything else, right? You don't talk back, and this is just how it is. And when my father would say something that I didn't think, was right, and as a child, I thought he was just misspeaking, right? I didn't know he was purposely lying or embellishing. And when I would correct him, he would tell me to keep my mouth shut or he would kill me. And that was just his normal reaction to get me to be quiet. And so it does silence you. It silences you because you think this is the norm. This is how it's supposed to be, and we're not supposed to talk about it. And that continued for a really long time until I really, came out with this book and I let it all out. And that silence, it eats away at you. It causes a lot of consequences. And you think, if I just don't talk about it, if I can just push it aside, I can move on, I can get away from the abuse, everything will be okay. The problem is just, I got to get away from the situation first. But getting away from an abusive situation, or getting away from somebody who's hurting you, is definitely part one, right? But then you're left with all the consequences that it leaves behind. And you then have to take charge and to do something about it.
Yes. And you also shared about, the first sexual molestation experience was from a family members, and this happens so much. And beautifully, you share that, all the time, parents who want to protect their children, they are obviously protecting them from strangers because they think that it's this stranger that is going to harm their kids. And most of the abuse that has happened, especially sexual molestations, are actually people that are around the family and find some space where they will, because of the safety of the child, actually have more access to the child. This happened to me. I was also sexually abused from age 3 to 8 by people who were always around our household. And it was very interesting that this, the secrecy is there. And because you begin this concept with a trust, you also hold the secret of the abuser and not know what to do. And you write beautifully, which is like, the sexual abuse was happening from a family member, but family was actually protecting the family members and the unit of the family versus addressing this issue directly. And with my clients I've worked with clients who've had also sexually abused with molestation, where even when the mother or the father wanted to protect their children and went and talked about this in the family, the whole family uproared sometimes and kind of pushed them aside and isolated them. And this is one of the biggest issues that I've also faced. Can you share a little bit about this concept that even one thing is the family doesn't deal with it. Another one is that even if they wanted to deal with it, the bigger perspective of, the extended family, the whole unit starts to shut it down, really.
Yeah. So the first molestation, even before I was molested by my dad, it was molested at a very young age by a cousin who came to live with us at home. And you're right. There's this idea that it's happening by the stranger and you can't walk down the street, but it's actually right here inside your house. And by people So with that incident, I did say something. I told my sister about it, and he was removed from the house. But then that was it. He still got invited over to other family events. I mean, till this day, people still talk to him, celebrate him. My mom gives me updates about what he's doing. And it's like, I don't care. But that's kind of how it was dismissed. It's like, oh, yeah, that happened. He kind of like spilled a drink on you and kind of move on. We reprimanded him by telling him to move out, and that really wasn't a solution. So at a very young age, it was like it was made to, I believed it didn't matter, right? Like it could happen, but it doesn't really mean anything, and it's not really that big of a deal. With respect to what you were saying, like the family kind of binding together and ignoring it is one thing, but I think they've all suffered some sort of trauma, right? So there's that. But even now, as I'm letting it out and speaking out about it, there's the consequence of not everybody's really happy about it. Not everybody in the family is supporting the decision to, publicly announce what went on at home, because we have worked hard to keep it a secret and keep the image that everything was fine.
Yes. And I think the next abuse that you talk about, which is really takes all of the boundaries and breaks it. Because I think that although someone is not a stranger and it's a family member, it's still a different concept when it is a family member that is supposed to protect you, that is supposed to be there for you, that is supposed to be your model. This is a person that we run to because they're our God and goddesses, and they're supposed to protect us from the world. And when the abuse actually comes from, our father or a mother or someone, a sibling or someone who is so close to our heart, the devastation that happens is that the boundaries all get blurred. And one of the things that you said in your book and shared is you think you are a part of this, although you're a child and you don't have no understanding of what is really happening to you, but you kind of get it that this doesn't work, that you get it that there's something is not right. But because this is someone who you're supposed to trust, you bypass these emotions, although they're consistently within you, and you find yourself part of the game almost. You think you're part of the game, although you're not. And then somehow you blame yourself. And I've seen this so long where people who have been, sexually abused, that they hold the shame of the perpetrator. Like, I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm holding the shame of the other person. And somehow it's as if I'm colluding with this. Or even if, my body is, because someone's touching it, having some experience that could even be pleasurable, but confused with all the other pieces that are not, we find ourselves as if I'm the one who is the perpetrator, or I'm the one who colluded with this. And this resonates with people for so long and holds their shame inside for so long, which is unfortunate and kind of unfair.
Yeah, that's completely right, right? Because I didn't shove the person away. Like, I didn't shove my dad away and tell him to stop and announce it to the world. Like, I let it happen. I was complicit in it. And so I had to carry that shame of allowing it to happen. I took the blame of, I allowed it to happen. It wasn't he did anything to me. I allowed it to happen. And because it had happened with my cousin, I was the problem. Like, this is just happening to me because I'm the dirty one. And this is the kind of things that happen to a person like me. And so that's exactly right. You carry it, even though you're not the one who did anything wrong. You carry the blame for it. And the other part that I think is really difficult is, and confusing, is when it's your father and, he's still part of your life. Like, he is still the one paying for, the house and the food and the school, all the stuff. So he's still that role. And it's confusing because he's also the one hurting me, right? And so you're not sure what to do with it. And even till this day, like, I go through therapy and my therapist wants me to be angry at my dad. And I still don't have that like anger, because there were still so many parts that he was there, taking care of me. He was just hurting me along the way. And it's sad, but I'm not like raging at him. I mean, he's passed now, so it's also hard to rage at him, but it is very confusing when it's the protector that's the abuser.
Well, it's almost like a split, not only we split ourselves, but we also split them. Like, there was the good daddy and a bad daddy, and then it becomes me, which I'm good and I'm bad. And something you wrote in your book, you said, I felt gross, but then this feeling of this is gross turned into I'm gross. It felt, and that's where the split kind of happens. And then you also, like you said, you have these experiences which are, no, it doesn't work, like, no. And then you have these other experiences with, a father who's kind and caring and so many other things. And it's like, yes. And then you have this yes and no consistently battling the same way within ourselves. We're consistently battling with that. And
my mom, right? And then the other side of it is the other protector, right? Is your mom is telling you that he is wonderful and how ungrateful, I could be for even, saying anything bad about him. So that you're also, gaslit into believing that this is good. I have a good life and I should shut my mouth and not complain because so many people have it way worse than me. So kind of get over it. This isn't bad. And so believing that it's not really bad what's happening to you, or a problem or something that, you should be, talking about.
And sometimes it was interesting that once that I shared with my mom, because I shared it and it was like, at one point it was like, no, kind of minimizing it like you were saying. And then at one point, which I was older, and I attempted it because I got it that she can't even handle it. Like, she would break if she actually knew the truth. So I would start with, in a way, you kind of letting her know like this happens. And it was fascinating that once she told me, oh, that's just something that men do. Hey, and then she started laughing and giggling. And I thought, wow, this must have happened to her too. Because the way she was minimizing this, it's almost like, in order for me not to be so devastated, I had to make it a normal thing where, haha, this happens all the time, which it doesn't, and it doesn't have to, and it shouldn't. But you could see also, like, generational trauma where some person minimizes it, some person just avoids it, some person just says, okay, I'll take the split. I'm not going to look at the other side, but look at all the good sides because I have to in order to survive and, not destroy all of my future. I have to split it off and say the only the parts I'm going to look at is the greatness. And that's the only part you should be looking at also.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. There's all different methods of how you deal with trauma, and I have a lot of empathy for that. Like, I'm sure my mom and dad were abused in some way when they were young. I don't know their story as to what happened to them, but I'm sure they had a very traumatic childhood. I mean, my mom, had an arranged marriage at 17, and she didn't want a bunch of kids, but my dad did, and that was her role. She just had to keep having babies. So I have a lot of empathy for her. And when I was a child, I really thought she was one of me, right? She was also, being hurt by my dad. It wasn't until I had my own daughter that I was really mad at my mom, because that mother instinct is just, to me, so natural, like to protect your baby or to protect your young. It just naturally comes on you. And I don't feel like my mom ever took a step to protect us, not even just like by, opening her mouth to tell my dad to stop. She couldn't even do that. So that one hurts. I do have empathy for her and probably all the things she's gone through. But it's hard as a mom to see her silence and experience her silence.
Yes. Fire Up, Fueling Triumph from Trauma by Alreen Haeggquist. Alreen, you also talked about how our body holds things, our memory holds things. And although we're trying to understand it, we're trying to reframe it, we're trying to survive it, but there's this part that holds it and copes with it and tries to protect ourselves, in one way or another. I remember, and I want you to share your story about, your husband and how this thing showed up in your marriage. And I remember that at one point I was dating someone and they held my leg and they were just being playful. And this rage came up and I started kicking them. And he was like, what happened? Like, why are you suddenly like that? And I crawled back in this like wounded animal that was trying to protect herself. And he was there like, we're just playful here. Like, what's going on? And for the first time, I looked at what just happened and I got it that my body is always responding as if like, if I couldn't protect myself from age 3 to 8, God damn it, I'm going to protect myself now, no matter what. But not any longer realizing that the whole world was not a threat anymore. And I had lost that concept. And I got it that as I was reading your book, that you really got some of this, how it affected you in your relationships as you grew up.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, my husband got the brunt of it. This was even before I learned about triggers and what triggers meant. But if I thought my husband was being dishonest by the way he looked or the way he said something, or I thought he wasn't protecting me because he didn't, say something when I thought he should have, I would rage at him and I would go off. And my switch was like instant. I could be smiling and happy this one moment and like an angry beast the next. And I didn't realize it. I didn't know that of myself. I thought I was just like getting mad at him because he was the problem, right? He did whatever he did. And if he stopped that, it would be better. And we went to couples therapy, and it was for the first time, he told me he was scared of me, and it broke my heart. Like, I was scared my whole life. I wasn't the scary one. And so to have somebody tell you, the person you love, that you were scaring them, it really just shocked me. And it for the first time, I started looking at how I must come off, right? Like how my reactions are coming off to him. And so that was, just like opened my eyes, I should say, of recognizing. And it wasn't until later when I started going to therapy about triggering. It wasn't that he was doing anything. It was when I was young and people were lying to me, or when I was young, there was injustice, or when I was young and my mom wasn't protecting me. It was that rage that was now coming out, in this event today. And that was like, it kind of blew my mind. Now it's, I've been working through it. But at that time, when I learned that concept of like my subconscious coming out, it was really profound, and it allowed me to work on, on this path of working on the trauma that I had as a kid to be better.
Yes. And it's also the other side of this where you took care of yourself. I loved it when you said you didn't make the mess, but you still have to clean it up. And not only you attempted to clean it up for yourself in your psyche, in your body, but you also took that fire, which is definitely the name of your book, Fired Up. You took that fire inside and made it into taking a stand for you, taking a stand for women, taking a stand for justice. You became an attorney, and your life mission now is to take care of this. Instead of taking the fire and allowing it to burn you, to burn your marriage, to burn you as a mother with your, the next generation, you took that fire and you're lighting up this concept, for your clients when they come to you as an attorney, or, with your book, sharing to the world of how this transformation can happen. So please share with us how that transformation happened for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I believe like step one is you got to admit that it happened, acknowledge that it happened. And so for me, it was, the start of it, I would say, was when I finally got out of my abusive, home. And I moved away for college. I got to move out to San Diego, and I saw my friend journaling. And when she was journaling, I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, well, I put in thoughts that I'm not ready to share with other people. And I was like, oh, okay. So all the crap and all the things that, happened to me as a kid, I just wrote it out in this journal. And I just like detailed, everything that had, that was, I guess, circling in my mind. And after that, a few years later, I was like, why am I keeping this thing? And I went to Burning Man and burned this journal. And I thought I was done. I got it out. I had burned it. Past is behind me. I'm doing well at school. I have friends. I have a relationship. Like, things are great. And I really thought that, my past, I was done with my past, and I had moved on, and I'd started a new life for myself. But I didn't realize that was just the beginning. Because what we were talking about earlier, your body keeps score. And I started having all of these physical manifestations, like a bleeding ulcer that just wouldn't stop. And it wasn't until like I started doing work to heal that. And my doctor just kept saying, you need to feel your feelings. And I didn't understand what that meant. And I started doing like inner child work, where you go back to the time, when I was a child being abused, and getting those feelings out. So instead of repressing it and not wanting to feel it, and essentially you're having a bleeding ulcer because your body's like, I need to feel it. Going back to that moment to see how I felt, that terrified little child. And once I was able to feel that, the bleeding stopped. And so that was like the next step. And so now, this is like the writing of this book is really, I don't say a culmination, but it's definitely a very, advanced step to my healing process, because now I'm sharing it, with the world. This is what happened to me, but that's because I am so fired up. Like, I need to show people like this is what I'm doing, because I think it's so important for you to be able to talk about what happened to you, so you can heal and live your best life. You're not destined to all of these problems, you know, in your life, either with your body or your relationships or your mental state. Like, you're not destined for that. There's something that happened, but you need to start acknowledging it and start addressing it, you know, by, you know, taking small steps to talk about it and change that thought pattern, and to, you know, be on a different trajectory, essentially. So
Yes. And what took you to want to specialize in this area? Because it seems like that you took what had happened to you and wanting to, now that you know how you experience this, to take a stand for other women. So your practice is really geared toward taking care of women, it seems.
Yeah. Because I can't be silent. I mean, one of the things that, you know, I didn't say anything myself when I was little, and I saw my sister get abused. I mean, that crushed me, and I had a lot of regret for that. So it's, you know, as I've got to college, I can't help but say something when I see injustice, or I see a woman being abused, or I see somebody who just can't, you know, voice what's going on. I am there for them. So it's really just, it became this, one, it's like a natural ability, but two, it's because I was quiet when I was young, and I'm not going to be quiet anymore. And so, you know, too late to help myself when I was little, but I'm able to help people now. So it's just taking what I wanted to do when I was little and didn't do it as a child, and making sure I'm doing it as an adult. So it's just, it's natural, and it's happening because I can't stay quiet anymore.
Well, I'm glad you're taking a stand, not only for yourself, but for all the women who are out there and coming to you. My experience, Alreen, has been, and you share with me because you're in this field and I'm not, I just see my clients and I support them to get there and then get to the attorneys. But sometimes I've experienced where, you know, the only kind of like consequence for sexual molestation or even rape is very minimal by the law. That even if they do, you know, accept that this is what happened, and they've, you know, the guilty position is there, still the consequence does not appear that it does a lot of rehabilitation for this group. What is your experience as an attorney with this?
So my focus isn't on the person, the abuser. My focus is on the person that has been abused. And I do civil cases. So the consequence, you know, is money. We're getting money for the harm that was caused. And for me, my focus is on the survivor and the empowerment. Like, when you stand up for yourself, you know, you are going to feel empowered. Like, even just right now, for me writing this book, I am taking a stand saying, I am not going to let you win by me staying silent, right? Because the only person that I've been protecting this whole time are the people that abused me, and keeping that secret and that trauma, even though it was at a detriment to me and what was going on in my body and my life. And so that same concept for women to step forward and stand up for themselves, it's the empowerment that I'm working towards. And I've seen it in every case that I handle. Women are more empowered by standing up for themselves. I'm not saying it's easy, which is, again, why I'm on this journey with you of writing this book and letting it out and talking to you on this podcast. I understand it is not easy. But how you are after, and how better off you are after, that I can promise you, and that I've seen in every single case. So again, it's hard to say what the consequences should be for the people that abuse you, because your consequences are forever, right? I don't think there's going to ever really be a punishment or a consequence that will make up for what happened to you, because you have to live with it for the rest of your life, you know?
And I think the most important thing, which you also alluded to in your book, same as like the Me Too movement, a lot of it has to do is to change the culture, that even is okay, or that we do need to shut up about it, or we need to have, you know, minimal concept about it, or we could just laugh at it and say, you know, oh, well, but no, it's not an oh, well. So every case that you support and empower, it's not only for that person and their family, but it's also for the bigger picture, that the more that we talk about this, the more that we take a stand, the more that we take stand, the societal stand, the civil stand, the criminal stands, whatever it is, that we're taking a stand and bringing this out and educating the world about this and saying it's not okay and it needs to stop. And for the people that this happens to, that they can find themselves, that they don't turn this is gross or this is happening to me to, I am something, I'm bad, I'm gross, I'm part of it, I'm colluding. So they can systematically kind of like separate these two and get it that, they're beautiful, everything about them is great. It's just, yes, an incident happened and they need to deal with it and really, shift the trauma inside of themselves into the empowerment that they can have and they should have.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was blown away. Again, I used to think I was all alone because it had just happened to me. And so in doing the work that I do, I learned the stats that, and this is low, I think it's higher because there's underreporting, but it says half the women have been sexually assaulted at some point in their life. That blew me away. I'm like, half of us have been sexually assaulted and we're not talking about it. And there's, again, so much shame associated with it. And I think the only way we're going to change the stats is because we start talking about it. We stop the silence. We stop saying this isn't happening to all of us. And we start talking about it. So those numbers don't exist when my daughter's growing up.
Yes. And this happens a lot also, not only in childhood with, such as your story or my story, but I, work with a lot of college students, which has the highest level of also sexual assault from their peers.
Yeah.
Drug raping or just, being out and, taking advantage or bullying or any of it. So you can see that this is something that just continues, as you grow up. And if you don't know how to take care of yourself, if you don't know, how to take a stand for yourself, this really devastates you. I work with people who are college students where, yes, at one point they said yes to just going out or drinking and, even being in the same vicinity with the person, but they never said okay to being raped under influence. And, but because they were there and they said yes to drinking and going to someone's house because they thought they're just going to have, a party, that they blame themselves for the whole thing. And they think that I caused this and all of this. And even when they go to their family is constantly now coming back with, see, we told you, you shouldn't have gone, you shouldn't have done this. And, it's your own fault that you got yourself into. And the person sits with this pain of, this was my fault, I did this to myself, versus, no, you said yes to this part of it. You never said yes to the other part of it. And yes, we could look at, risky behaviors, but this wasn't even a risky behavior. You're all peers, you're all going to the same, college, and you think you're safe. And then suddenly there's a harm that is happening. And usually the person takes it upon themselves and says, because I put myself, it's almost like getting into and somebody smashing your car and saying, well, just because I decided to drive today, obviously it's my fault that I got into, my car got smashed.
Yeah. And that's a no. It's a no. Tired of victim blaming. Just because you went out and you had a drink, that does not mean that's permission for somebody to rape you. And that's not permission for them to take advantage of you. So that dialogue needs to change. I don't know why it switches over to, it's the woman's fault for being in the place she was at, as opposed to, let's see how this person acted, knowing in the situation they were in. When they knew, they said no, knew they didn't want it, knew they didn't consent to it. So I just think it's, changing the dialogue. And I think that requires us women, or the people that have been abused, to start talking about it and knowing that we're not alone, like having,
yes,
friends in our circle to have that conversation with.
Yes. And even the clothing of women, oh, you're wearing this clothes, then you must be inviting it and you must want it. And that's why. And it's like, no, you can walk naked on the street and it doesn't give anybody
right.
the right.
So then you're going to start blaming the people who sold the clothes to you too. It's their fault. Just like, no, let's get some responsibility on the people, doing the behavior.
Yes. Fired up, everyone. Feeling Triumph from Trauma by Alreen Haeggquist. Alreen, anything we haven't shared that you really want people to know?
I would say don't wait. Life is short. We have finite lives. And so don't wait to take action to get yourself in the place you want to be, to live your best life.
Where can they find you?
I have a website. It's Alreen, ALREEN.com, and they can get a free introduction of my book there as well if they're interested.
Beautiful.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Absolutely. And where are you? And what is that beautiful city behind you?
San Diego, beautiful San Diego. Yeah, it never gets old.
Yes, it is. Well, again, thank you for taking the time to be here. And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, take good care of yourself and bye-bye.
Break free from the forces holding you back. Get the life you deserve. Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, decrease depression, and start living your full potential. Thousands have used Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory, an evidence-based behavioral health breakthrough with incredible life-changing results. Getting rid of past trauma, having fulfilling relationships, increasing earnings, and living their best life. Now, the Foojan app is available to everyone. The app is Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory in the palm of your hand. Download the Foojan app today.